everyone, Kristina Werner here. Welcome to another video for SimonsStamp.com. Today I'm using the hand-lettered holiday background stamp to create 3 shaker cards. Yes, you heard that, 3. Since I have my supplies out for 1 shaker card and I need lots of Christmas cards this year, I decided to just go ahead and make 3 cards. This first stamping is some green leaf cardstock cut to 6 by 6 inches, and I'm using the color Field for ink. And I just inked up my background stamp and then closed the door of my MISTI and pressed down with my fingertips to transfer the stamped image to every single section. So now I have this tone-on-tone green background with the background stamp. I'm going to use a damp stamp chamois from Fawn to clean up my background stamp, and then I'm going to switch colors. This next color combination is going to be pink, so I'm using some cotton candy cardstock as well as bubblegum ink. These 2 colors work really well together. I think the bubblegum ink is the perfect tone-on-tone ink for the cotton candy paper. So I'll press down and once again walk my fingertips over every area of that cling background stamp. And then now I have a tone-on-tone pink background. Once again, I'll clean my background stamp really well. And then for my third and final color combination, I'm using Schoolhouse red cardstock and Merlot ink. You could also use the Schoolhouse red ink for this. That's a perfect tone-on-tone effect, but Merlot is a deeper red, so it will help these words be a little bit more legible. So after I had my third and final background, I'm now going to start thinking about assembling my shaker card. So on my final card, I'm going to be using the large written Merry Christmas die, and I want it to be sized perfectly over a triangle that will resemble a tree shape. So I'm going to create my own tree on this piece of 5 by 7 cardstock. This is just a piece of scrap cardstock left over from when I cut down the cotton candy 6 by 6 sheet. So what I did was I marked the top and bottom of where I want the tree to be, and I used a T-square ruler to draw a line right through that, through the center of the card. I also drew a line for where I want the bottom of the card to be. And then I measured from that center line 1 3/4 inch on each side. That's going to make sure that my triangle is perfectly shaped. So 1 3/4 on each side. And then I use my ruler to may have the corners meet. So the very top of the tree down to that bottom right corner, and then the top of the tree down to that bottom left corner. So this is going to be my basic tree shape that's going to create the window on my shaker card. So I'm using that ruler and an X-Acto knife or a craft knife to cut out this triangle, and it's going to become the template for my shaker card so that I can move the triangle around on the front of my card and kind of get it positioned just right. I now have 3 pieces of white cardstock, and on one of the pieces of cardstock, I'm going to place my tree, and I'm going to get it positioned just right, and then use a pencil and trace the lines of my triangle that I've cut out. This also makes it so that I can use this for future cards. So if I want to create even more of these shaker cards, I can use this template. All right. So I'm going to stack all 3 sheets of cardstock together, and I'm going to cut them all at the same time. Now, I was extremely careful to make sure that these didn't shift while I was using my X-Acto knife, but if you are concerned about that, you can definitely use a little bit of low-tack tape to tape them all together so they don't move around. So I use very light strokes of my knife for each of these 3 sides on the triangle, and eventually it cut through all 3 pieces of cardstock. So if you don't have a big triangle die that you could use for 3 cards like this, you could definitely use an X-Acto knife. A triangle is a very easy shape to cut out, just takes a little bit of time. So these are the fronts of my shaker cards, and now I just have to assemble the actual shaker elements. So the first thing you want to do after you have your shaker window created is you want to adhere some acetate to the back of the card front. So I've turned over my cardstock pieces and I'm putting some liquid glue right down, right at that edge of my tree shape. And I'm also kind of going out and putting a little glue off to the sides as well. And then I'm taking some acetate. This is some heat resistant acetate from Simon. And I'm pressing that down right over that area. So this creates the actual window of the shaker card. And I did that to the other two card fronts as well. Did everything in batches. That's what's great about making multiple cards like this. When you do it in batches like this, it goes rather quickly. So I did that to the final card front over on the side, put some of that acetate down, and then I'm ready to move on to creating the actual well area of my shaker. So this is the easiest way that I find to make shaker cards. You take some foam tape and you fold it over on itself so that it creates a deeper shaker card element. So you just need a little more depth to the shaker so that your sequins can move around freely. So I stick those two together and then I can go around and put the foam adhesive around the window. So I'm not going to be using any glitter or very small shaker bits in these shaker cards today. So I'm getting the foam tape very, very close at the corners, but if there's a small gap, it's not a big deal. I'm using my scissors to cut through both layers of foam tape as well. So I went around and I did the triangle shape right around that window on all three cards. And then you're also going to need to add some foam tape to the other areas on the card. And that's because this is what's going to be adhered to the card base. So you want to make sure that you have everything level. So make sure none of your foam areas overlap. So you'd have kind of a bulky part of your card. Just trim that off if you have any overlaps. All right, so now I'm going to fill in all the corners and different areas on each shaker to make sure that I have a nice even level for all of the card fronts. All right, so I've got three kind of shaker cards ready to go. I'm now going to pick out the shaker sequin mixes that I'll be using in each one of these. So for the green background stamp that I did, I'll be using the Spring Green mix from Simon. This pink and purple mix is also from Simon. I don't have the name on the bag, but I'll put it down in the supplies that are listed below. And then I'm using the Berry Delight mix from Lucy's Cards. That one isn't available at Simon, but there is a very similar mix available at Simon, so I'll link that down below. So I'm using my MISTI tool, and it's purely just so I can put the shaker in the bottom corner and kind of keep things lined up. So I'm going to show you two different methods for assembling the shaker. The first is to put the sequins in and then remove the release paper on all the foam. And for this green one, that's exactly what I did. You just want to make sure that there are no sequins that are sticking to the foam tape. So that works out pretty well. I'll adhere that down. And then I'm going to take my tape runner adhesive, and today I'm using some Tombow Extreme adhesive, and I'm going to add adhesive to the back of my stamped panel. And this is the area that's going to be adhered directly to the card front. So I'm going to push this down to that bottom corner of my MISTI, and then I have my folded card base ready to go, and I can line that up in that bottom corner and then press down. That just makes it super easy to line up all these layers on the shaker card. So here's that first shaker card, pretty much done. I just have to add the greeting to it. So let's go on to the other two. For the second one, instead of putting the sequins in first, I'm going to put the sequins in after I have removed the release paper on the foam. And I find this to be a little bit easier because inevitably when you take off the release paper, you'll kind of shift and move that shaker card front around, and then you risk getting some of the sequins on the foam tape. So I actually prefer the second method where you remove the release paper on the tape and then put the sequins in. I put the red stamped panel over the shaker bits and then put some adhesive on the back of the red panel and then my card base down on top. And that assembled so quickly. So if you wanted to do a bunch of these shaker cards for your Christmas cards this year, you absolutely could. All right, on to the very last one for that pink one. I've got the shaker bits in there, the release paper off. I'm going to press this background right down over the top, adding my tape runner adhesive to the pink cardstock, and then putting that card base down right over the top. I love this method using the MISTI, the corner of the MISTI, because it makes it so much faster. So here we are. I've got all 3 shaker cards basically assembled. And now all I have to do is put the greeting on the front. So if you remember, I'm using a die cut for the greeting, and I'm going to be using this matte gold cardstock from Stamp for the actual die cutting. So I ran that through my die cutting machine 3 times, and I just used a craft pick to poke out all the different areas on the die cut, and then I was ready to start adhering them. I held each die cut with a pair of tweezers, just so I had an extra kind of little way to hold it while I was moving it around. I then put some of that same liquid adhesive that I used earlier on the acetate, the Honeybee Precision Glue. I put dabs of that on the back of the die cut, pressed it on my card, and then I used an acrylic block to just hold it down for a little bit while I work on the other cards. So these cards are very, very clean and simple when it comes down to it. But having the addition of the sparkle in all the shaker, I think it really finishes off the card well. And especially for something that can be a little bit more busy with all those sequins inside, sometimes it's best to keep the card rather simple. So here are all 3 cards. I think it took me about 30 to 35 minutes to complete all 3 cards. So these are very simple, but they work up very quickly. Just a reminder that all the supplies I used today are listed down below in the video description or in the supplies at the blog. And thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in another video very soon.